The transport shuttle landed on the dusty moon of Veth-4 with a loud hiss. The doors opened and a small woman stepped out. Her name was Una Park. She was 31 years old, and she was a combat medic in the Human Alliance Army. She carried a heavy bag full of medical supplies on her back. Her uniform was clean and new. She looked around at the military base with calm eyes. The base was called Forward Operating Base Kestrel. It was a joint military station where soldiers from different alien species worked together. The buildings were made of gray metal. The sky above was orange and full of dust. The air smelled like metal and smoke. Una walked toward the main building. She could see many soldiers standing around. Some of them were humans like her, but most of them were aliens. There were Tovani warriors standing in groups. They were huge creatures, almost 8 feet tall. Their skin was covered in thick scales like a lizard. Their eyes were yellow and their teeth were sharp. They had been fighting wars for thousands of years before humans even existed. There were also Ildeshi soldiers. They looked like giant insects with hard shells. They had 4 arms and made clicking sounds when they talked. They were fast and smart, and they thought of themselves as the best fighters in the galaxy. All of them stopped talking when they saw Una. They stared at her. Some of them laughed. A massive Tovani walked toward her. He was even bigger than the others. His scales were dark green and scarred from many battles. His name was Vorash, and he was the commander of the entire battalion. He looked down at the small human woman. His yellow eyes showed nothing but disgust. "They sent us a healer?" he said. His voice was deep like thunder. "The humans send us one of their weak ones? One who cannot even fight?" The Ildeshi second in command was named Desik. He made a clicking sound that was their way of laughing. "Maybe she is here to make us feel better before we die. Something soft to look at." All the aliens laughed. Even some of the human soldiers looked away. They were embarrassed. Una stood very still. Her face showed nothing. She did not look scared. She did not look angry. She just waited for them to finish laughing. She had heard words like this before. On her first mission, the Marines had called her useless. On her second mission, the soldiers had said medics were just targets waiting to get shot. On her third mission, she had kept a wounded man alive for 16 hours with nothing but tape and willpower, while waiting for rescue that almost did not come. She was used to being underestimated. "I am combat medic, Lieutenant Park," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "I am here to keep you alive. If you respect that or not, that is your problem, not mine." Commander Varash leaned down. His face came very close to hers. She could feel his hot breath. She could smell the strange copper smell of his body. He was trying to scare her. "On this moon, little human, we survive through strength," he said slowly. "Your medicine is weakness. Your caring is weakness. Stay out of our way or you will die like the weak thing you are." Una did not step back. She did not blink. She looked straight into his yellow eyes. "I will be in the medical bay," she said. "Try not to bleed to death before you find me." She walked past him. She did not look back. She could hear more laughter behind her, but she did not care. The base commander had given her a small room for her medical work. When she found it, she almost laughed. It was a storage closet. The walls were covered in rust. There was no proper medical table, just an old cargo box with a thin mattress on top. The light kept flickering. "This is it," she said to herself. "This is what they give me to save lives." She put down her bag and started to unpack. She had brought everything she could carry: bandages, medicine, surgical tools, a small computer for scanning injuries. And one other thing, she pulled out a small robot from the bottom of her bag. It was a medical drone about the size of a cat. It was old and broken when she found it. She had spent months fixing it and making it work again. She called it Miri. "Wake up, Miri," she said. The drone made a soft beeping sound. Its small lights turned on. "We have a lot of work to do," Una told the little robot. "This place is a mess. The equipment is bad. The soldiers do not want us here. And there is a war coming." Miri beeped again, as if agreeing with her. Una started to organize her supplies. She cleaned the room as best she could. She set up her equipment on the rusty shelves. It was not much. It was not what she needed, but it would have to be enough. That night, she lay on a thin bed in a corner of the room. She was too tired to find better sleeping quarters. She stared at the ceiling and listened to the sounds of the military base outside. Soldiers talking. Machines running. The wind blowing dust against the walls. She thought about what Commander Varash had said. He called her weak. He called medicine weakness. She had heard it all before. Every species in the galaxy thought strength meant fighting. It meant killing. It meant being bigger and faster and more dangerous than everyone else. But Una knew something they did not know. There was another kind of strength. A strength to keep going when everything was terrible. The strength to care about others when no one cared about you. The strength to save lives when everyone around you was trying to take them. She closed her eyes. 3 days, she whispered to herself. I give them 3 days before they need me. She was wrong. It only took 2. The attack came at sunrise. Yuna was checking her medical supplies when she heard the first explosion. The whole building shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Alarms started screaming across the base. She ran to the door and looked outside. The sky was full of fire. Dozens of metal pods were falling through the orange clouds. They hit the ground with massive crashes. Then they opened and enemy soldiers poured out. The Volcari had arrived. The Volcari were the enemy of the Alliance. They were tall and gray with 4 eyes and long arms. They carried plasma weapons that burned through metal and flesh. They believed their gods had chosen them to rule the galaxy. They did not take prisoners. They did not show mercy. And there were hundreds of them. Yuna watched for only a moment. Then she ran back inside. She grabbed her medical bag and strapped it tight. She put Miri on her shoulder. Then she ran toward the sound of battle. She set up a medical station 200 meters behind the front line. It was close enough that soldiers could reach her quickly. It was far enough that she would not get shot immediately. She found a half-destroyed building and cleared a space on the floor. This is Medic Park, she said into her radio. Triage point established at Building 7. Bring me your wounded. The first casualties arrived 10 minutes later. 2 human soldiers carrying a third. His leg was gone below the knee. Blood was everywhere. Una did not panic. She had seen worse. She pulled the wounded man onto her makeshift table and got to work. She stopped the bleeding first. Then she cleaned the wound. Then she wrapped it tight and gave him medicine for the pain. You will live, she told him. Do not move. The next patient was already being carried in. Then another. Then another. The battle was going badly. Una could hear it on the radio. The Tavani lines were breaking. The Ildishi scouts were trapped. Human soldiers were dying in groups. And the wounded kept coming. Her 15th patient was a Tavani warrior named Krath. He was massive, even for his species. But now he was dying. A plasma weapon had burned through his chest armor and cooked his second lung. Tovani had 2 lungs. He could survive with one, but the wound was filling with fluid. He was drowning from the inside. The 2 humans who carried him in looked scared. Can you help him? One of them asked. He's Commander Varash's clutch brother. Una looked at the huge alien on her table. His scales were turning gray. His yellow eyes were full of pain and fear. He was the same species that had laughed at her 2 days ago. The same species that had called her weak and useless. None of that mattered now. "Hold him down," she ordered. Torvani biology was very different from humans. Their organs were in different places. Their blood was so hot it could burn human skin. Every medical book said you needed special equipment to operate on them. You needed alien-trained doctors. You needed specific tools. Yuna had none of those things. She only had her knowledge, her hands, and her refusal to let anyone die. "Miri, cooling packs on my gloves. Now." The little drone responded immediately. Ice-cold gel covered Yuna's gloves. It would protect her hands from the Torvain's hot blood for a few minutes. Maybe enough time. She cut open the damaged armor. She reached inside the warrior's chest. The heat was intense, even through the cooling gel. She could feel his organs pulsing around her hands. She found the damaged lung. She found the leaking blood vessels. And she fixed them. It was not pretty. It was not how they taught it in medical school. She used wire instead of proper thread. She used tools meant for humans on alien flesh. She made decisions in seconds that should have taken hours of planning. But when she was done, Krath was breathing again. His scales were turning back to their normal color. His eyes focused on her face. "What? What happened?" he whispered in his deep voice. "You got shot," Yuna said. She was already cleaning her tools for the next patient. "Now you are not dead. Do not make me do this again." She worked for 6 more hours without stopping. Torvani, Ildeshi, humans. It did not matter what species they were. They came to her broken and dying, and she put them back together. When she ran out of proper medicine, she made her own from chemicals she found in the base. When she ran out of bandages, she tore up sheets and uniforms. When an Ildeshi soldier refused treatment because accepting help from a human was against his honor code, she gave him medicine to make him sleep and saved him anyway. "Hate me later," she told his sleeping body. "I would rather you hate me than die." The sun was setting when the battle finally ended. The Valkyrie had been pushed back. The base had survived. But the cost was terrible. Over 200 soldiers were wounded. Many more were dead. But something strange had happened. The survival rate among the wounded was very high. Soldiers who should have died were alive. Warriors with terrible injuries were stable and talking. Commander Vorash came to the medical building that evening. He found Yuna sitting outside on a box. Her uniform was covered in blood from many different species. Her hands were shaking from tiredness. She had not slept in over 30 hours. The massive Torvani stood before her. He did not say anything at first. He just looked at her with his yellow eyes. "Krath is my clutch brother," he finally said. "The warrior you saved first. He told me what you did. He said you put your hands inside his body. He said you fought death itself to keep him alive." Yuna looked up at him. She was too tired to be scared or proud or anything else. "That is my job," she said simply. Commander Vorash shook his head slowly. "No, that is something more." He put his clawed fist against his chest. It was the Torvani sign of respect. The deepest respect one warrior could show another. "I was wrong about you, human. I will not be wrong again." He walked away without another word. Yuna sat there for a moment. She let herself feel something like pride for exactly 30 seconds. Then she stood up and went back inside. Tomorrow, there would be more wounded. Tomorrow, there would be more dying soldiers who needed her help. Tomorrow, the war would continue. But tonight, she had proven something important. Not to the aliens. Not to the other humans. To herself, she was not weak. She had never been weak. She was just strong in a different way. And this war was going to need every kind of strength it could get. Word spread fast in a war. Soldiers talked to each other. Officers wrote reports. Messages traveled across space from one ship to another, from one planet to another. from one star system to another. And everyone was talking about the same thing. There was a human medic on VETH4 who did not let people die. It started as a small story. Someone mentioned her in a message home. Someone else told a friend on another base. A Torvani warrior sang about her in the traditional warrior songs of his people. An Ildishi scout started wearing a piece of her old bandage as a good luck charm. Soon, everyone knew her name. Una Park, the human medic. The one who saved everyone. Soldiers from other units asked to be sent to VETH4. They wanted to serve in the same battalion as the famous healer. Tovani warriors who had never respected humans before started to change their minds. Ildishi soldiers stopped making jokes about weak humans. The enemy noticed too. The Volcari were smart. They understood that wars were not won only with weapons. Sometimes you had to attack the things that made your enemy strong. And right now, the thing making the alliance strong was one small human woman with a medical bag. 3 weeks after the first battle, Valkyrie commanders made a terrible decision. They decided to send a special team to kill Una Park. The attack came at night. 30 Valkyrie elite soldiers, the best killers in their army, sneaked into the base. Their mission was simple. Find the human medic. Kill her. Get out. They thought it would be easy. She was just a healer. She had no weapons. She could not fight. They were very wrong. Private Da Hakim was 19 years old. He was a human soldier who had lost both legs to a grenade 2 weeks earlier. Una had saved his life. She had sat with him through the pain. She had told him jokes to make him smile. She had promised him that he would walk again someday with new robot legs. He could not walk yet, but he could still see. And he could still shoot. Doha was lying in his bed in the medical building when he saw movement outside the window. Dark shapes moving in ways that normal soldiers did not move. His heart started beating fast. He grabbed his radio. "Enemy soldiers," he whispered into the radio. "They are coming for the medical building. At least 20 of them. Maybe more." That warning saved everyone. Sergeant Jian Chai was a 28-year-old combat engineer. Una had pulled her from a burning vehicle 3 days after the first battle. Her skin was still covered in burn scars, but her mind was sharp. When she heard Doha's warning, she did not panic. She started giving orders. Everyone who can fight, grab a weapon. Everyone who cannot fight, stay low and stay quiet. Protect the medic at all costs. Soldiers who could barely walk picked up guns. Patients with one arm pulled themselves out of bed. Even the alien warriors who were still recovering from their wounds got ready to fight. And Krath, the Torvani that Una had saved on the first day, stood directly in front of her operating table. His wounds were not fully healed. He should have been resting. But when he heard that enemies were coming for the healer who saved him, he did not care about his own health. "You gave me my life," he said to Una. His voice was like stone. "Now I give it back to you." The Valkyrie broke through the walls. Plasma fire lit up the night. The battle was chaos. Una did not run. She did not hide. She had a patient on her table. An Ildishi scout with a chest wound. He needed her right now. So she kept working. Explosions shook the building. Soldiers screamed and died around her. The smell of blood and smoke filled the air. And still she kept working. Her hands did not shake. Her focus did not break. One Valkyrie soldier got through all the defenders. He was tall and gray with 4 burning eyes. He pointed his weapon at Una's head. He was going to kill her. Una looked up from her patient. She looked at the weapon. She looked at the enemy. "If you are going to shoot me," she said calmly, "please wait until I close this wound. I am almost done." The Valkyrie stopped. He was confused. This human was not begging. She was not crying. She was not even scared. She was just asking him to wait while she saved the life. He waited too long. Sergeant Chai's shot hit him in the head. He fell dead to the ground. While Una finished her surgery. She closed the wound. She cleaned her tools. Then she looked around at the destroyed room, the dead bodies, the blood on the floor. Is anyone else hurt? She asked. The battle lasted 11 minutes. 23 Valkyrie died. Not a single person in the medical building was killed. The next morning, every senior officer in the battalion signed a special document. Torvani commanders, Ildeshi leaders, human officers. All of them agreed on something for the first time in history. They asked that Una be given a higher rank. They asked that she be put in charge of all medical work in the entire area. They asked that she receive the Cross of Valor, the highest award for bravery. No one had ever seen different species agree like this. The military leaders could not believe it. They approved everything within 6 hours. Captain Una Park did not celebrate. She did not give a speech. She did not act proud or happy. She just went back to work. There were more patients who needed her. There was more healing to do. The war was not over yet. But something had changed. The soldiers did not just respect her now. They loved her. They believed in her. They were willing to die for her. And that made her more powerful than any general with 1,000 ships. Because a leader who people follow out of fear can lose them at any moment. But a leader who people follow out of love? That kind of leader can change the galaxy. The siege of Veth 4 went on and on. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The Valkyrie kept sending more soldiers. The Alliance kept losing more people. What had started as a battle for one small moon had become a nightmare that ate soldiers alive. Una's medical operation grew bigger. She no longer worked in a storage closet. Now she had an entire section of the base. She trained medics from every species. She wrote new rules for treating wounded soldiers. She created methods that doctors on other planets started using. Her survival rate was so high that military scientists said it was impossible. The numbers did not make sense. She was saving people who should have been dead. But even legends have limits. Even the strongest people can break. Day 87 of the siege was the worst day of Una's life. The Valkyrie did something terrible. They used a chemical weapon. This weapon was illegal. Every government in the galaxy had agreed never to use it. But the Valkyrie did not care about rules. The gas did not kill quickly. That was what made it so evil. It destroyed the lungs slowly over many hours. The victims stayed awake and aware. They felt themselves slowly losing the ability to breathe. It was a cruel and horrible way to die. The gas hit Firebase Echo on the edge of the base. It hit the area where the young ones worked. In every army, there were jobs that seemed safe. Jobs away from the fighting. Young Torvani, who had not finished their warrior training, worked as messengers. Human teenagers helped with communications. Ildeshi young ones carried supplies. Everyone thought these jobs were safe. They were wrong. 112 casualties came to the medical building that night. Most of them were young. Torvani, who had not yet grown their full scales. Humans who were 15, 16, 17 years old. Ildeshi, who still had soft shells. Children. They were children. And there was nothing Una could do. She knew the science. She understood what the gas did to lungs. There was no medicine that could fix it. There was no surgery that could help. Once someone breathed that gas, they were going to die. It was only a matter of time. Una tried anyway. For 16 hours she worked without stopping. She tried everything. Old treatments. New treatments. Things she made up on the spot. Nothing worked. Nothing could work. But she could not stop trying. She could not look at a dying child and do nothing. A young Torvani warrior held her claw. He was scared. He could not breathe well anymore. His yellow eyes were full of tears. "Am I going to be okay?" he asked in a small voice. Una held his claw tighter. She looked into his eyes. And she lied. "You are going to be fine," she said. "Just rest. I am here with you." He died an hour later. She held his claw the whole time. A human girl named Mina was next. She was 16. She had brown hair and a small scar on her chin. She told Yuna about her family back on Earth. Her mother who made good soup. A little brother who wanted to be a pilot. Her father who told bad jokes. "Will you tell them I was brave?" Mina asked. Her breathing was getting worse. Yuna nodded. She could not speak. There were tears on her face, but she did not wipe them away. "You are the bravest person I have ever met," Yuna whispered that Mina smiled. Then she closed her eyes. She did not open them again. One by one, they died. All 112 of them. Yuna could not save a single one. When it was over, Sergeant Jeong Chai found Yuna sitting alone in the empty medical room. There were bodies all around her. Bodies she had not had time to move. Bodies of children she could not save. Yuna was sitting very still. Her hands were in her lap. Her face was wet with tears. Her eyes were looking at nothing. "Captain," Jeon said softly, "you need to rest. I could not save them." Yuna's voice was barely a whisper. "I am supposed to save them. That is my job. That is the only thing I am good at. And I could not save any of them. There was nothing you could do. The gas was. I know what the gas did." Yuna's voice cracked. "I know the science. I know that they were dead the moment they breathed it. I know that. But knowing does not help. Knowing does not bring them back." She started to cry. Really cry. Her whole body shook with it. Gyeon sat down next to her. She did not try to say comforting things. She did not try to make it better. Some pain was too big for words. She just sat there with her captain and let her cry. "They told me I was weak," Yuna said finally. "When I first came here, they said medicine was weakness. Maybe they were right. Maybe carrying this much is weakness. Maybe it would be easier if I could look at a dying child and feel nothing." "That is not weakness," Jeon said quietly. "That is what makes you different. That is why people follow you. Not because you always win. Because you never stop caring. Even when it destroys you." Yuna was silent for a long time. "I am so tired," she whispered. "I know. I do not know how much longer I can do this. You will do it as long as you need to. And we will be here with you." Yuna looked at the younger woman. Jeon Chai, the engineer she had saved from a burning vehicle. The soldier who had defended her against assassins. The friend who was now holding her together when she wanted to fall apart. "Thank you," Yuna said. "Thank me by surviving," Jeon replied. "And by sleeping for at least 4 hours." Yuna almost smiled. It was a small smile. A broken smile. But it was real. She slept that night. She dreamed about the children she could not save. She woke up crying, and then she got up, washed her face, and went back to work. Because that is what you do when you are a legend. You keep going, even when you are broken. Especially when you are broken. The dead children deserve that much. They deserve someone who would not give up, even after the worst night of her life. Yuna would carry their memory forever. And she would use that weight to push herself forward. For them. For everyone. For as long as the war needed her. The siege of Veth 4 ended on day 112. Alliance ships finally arrived. A huge fleet that filled the orange sky with lights and thunder. They broke through the Valkyrie blockade and drove the enemy away. The war was not over, not completely. But this battle was won. The cost was terrible. Thousands of soldiers had died. The moon was scarred and burned from months of fighting. Everyone who survived was changed forever, but they had survived. And that was because of one person more than anyone else. The ceremony was held in the ruins of the main command building. Workers had cleaned it as best they could. Leaders from every allied species were there. Torvani War chiefs with their scarred scales. HFY Hive leaders with their clicking voices. Human admirals and generals in their clean uniforms. Even species who had not fought on Veth4 sent people to watch. Everyone wanted to see the human medic. They had heard so much about Captain Unipark stood at the front of the room. She wore her old uniform. It was cleaned, but still showed marks from months of hard work. Her medical bag hung at her side. She had refused to take it off, even for this. She looked small standing there, tired, not like a legend at all. Grand Admiral Helena Vance, the leader of all Alliance forces in the area. Read from a document. For bravery beyond what duty requires. For saving more than 1,000 lives from many different species. For showing medical skill that no one thought possible. For teaching others and creating new ways to help the wounded. For proving that human compassion is not weakness, but the greatest strength of all. The Galactic Alliance gives the Star of Unity to Captain Unipark. The Star of Unity was a crystal medal with pieces from the home planets of every Alliance species inside it. It was usually given to admirals who won impossible battles or diplomats who stopped wars. No one had ever given it to a medic before. Una accepted the medal with steady hands. She looked at the crowd. She saw the Torvani who had called her weak. Now they watched her with respect. She saw the HFY who had laughed at her. Now they wore pieces of her old equipment as symbols of honor. She saw the humans who had been ashamed of her. Now they stood tall because of her. "I do not deserve this," she said quietly. The crowd went silent. This was not how people usually accepted awards. "I do not deserve this," Una continued, "because I did not do anything special. I just did my job. I am a medic. I save lives. That is all." She looked down at the medal in her hands. The people who deserve recognition are the ones who did not come home. The ones who gave everything. The children who died in my arms because I could not save them. Her voice cracked, but she kept talking. "When I came to this moon, they told me medicine was weakness. They said caring about others instead of fighting was wrong. And maybe by some measurements, that is true. I cannot fight like a Torvani. I'm not fast like an HFY. I cannot do many things that warriors think are important." She looked up. Her eyes were fierce now. "But I can do this. I can look at a dying soldier, any species, and see someone worth saving. I can work until my hands shake because every life matters. I can refuse to give up, even when giving up would be easier. If that is weakness, then I will be weak forever. Because not caring is not strength. It is just cruelty with a better name." The room was completely silent. Then Commander Varash stepped forward. The massive Torvani who had first mocked her all those months ago. "You are wrong, Captain Park," he said in his deep voice. "What you describe is not weakness." He put his clawed fist against his chest. "It is the most terrifying strength I have ever seen. The strength to carry the weight of every life you touch. The strength to break and keep going. My people have fought wars for 10,000 years. We know strength. And we know it when we see it." He dropped to one knee, a Torvani warrior kneeling. The deepest sign of respect in their culture dot around the room. Others followed. HFY leaders, human officers, Torvani warriors, species Una did not even recognize. One by one, they all kneeled before the small human woman in the worn uniform. Una stood there, tears in her eyes, as an entire galaxy showed her what she had become, a legend. 20 years later, the Unipark Memorial Medical Academy stood on the planet of New Sol. It trained more than 10,000 medics every year from 47 different species. Above the main door, words were carved in stone. Something she had said during the siege. I would rather be hated than attend your funeral." Una herself had died peacefully at 73 years old. She was surrounded by friends and former patients who came from across the galaxy to be with her. The Tovani declared a day of sadness across their entire civilization. No other non-Tovani had ever received this honor. At her funeral, Private Doha Kim spoke. He was not a private anymore. He was a doctor now. The boy who had lost his legs and warned everyone about the assassins had spent 40 years working at the academy named after his former captain. "She saw something worth saving in all of us," he said. His voice was old but strong. "Even when we could not see it ourselves. Even when we laughed at her. Even when we told her she was weak. She just kept saving us anyway." He paused and wiped his eyes. "That is what made her a legend. Not the awards. Not the honors. Not the stories. Just that simple, stubborn refusal to let anyone die alone." He looked up at her portrait. A young woman in a worn uniform. Medical bag at her side. Fierce determination in her eyes. "Rest now, Captain. We will take it from here." Somewhere across the galaxy, a young medic from another species read about Una Park for the first time. The story of a human healer who was mocked for being weak and became the most respected warrior of her generation. The young medic closed the book and smiled, and the legend lived on.